Okay, thank you so much for inviting me to this program. First and foremost, we should understand very clearly that the term Islamophobia is not new. Islamophobia itself is very historical. One can link it with the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that if there was no Islamophobia at that time, there will be no Islam today. So what I'm trying to say is that even at the time of the Prophet, there was Islamophobia. So Abi Lahab, Abu Sufyan, so all of those who later became Muslims, they were very much Islamophobic in nature. So Islamophobia is as old as Islam.
Right.
One. Number two, unfortunately, after the end of the Cold War, Islamophobia had now become a commonplace in international politics, in regional politics, and in local politics, that everyone uses it in a way either to criticize or to kind of sell their own product. So we've seen how Islamophobia is being used in Europe, it's being used in the United States and different parts of the world. I think in terms of regional stability, Islamophobia has not been very well for the Muslims. For example, let us look at what is going on in Southeast Asia, in Myanmar or in Burma, how the Muslims are being persecuted. That shows a huge diversity of Islamophobia. And this Islamophobia had led to induced migration of the Muslims, the Rohingya Muslims. So that tells you from a regional perspective, Islamophobia has not been good for the Muslim. So if you come to South Asia, again, Islamophobia has not been good. Whether we look at it from how the Indian government of BJP have been criticizing, persecuting the Muslims in terms of revoking certain laws in Kashmir, or in terms of how they have been treating Muslims. Again, like I said, Islamophobia is also not new in the region. Particularly in India, look at what happened in 1992, how the Babri Masjid was destroyed. That shows that element of Islamophobia, and it continues. But unfortunately, we have seen that Islamophobia has become much more problematic during the BJP Modi-led government. And however, this is having some ripple effect. It's having a ripple effect on the whole South Asia, and we pray that it kind of suppress, that the tide of Islamophobia should suppress, because the Muslims are not finding it very funny at all. That could be true to a certain extent, that after 9/11, Islamophobia became a tool in the hand of certain people. It is not as if Muslims should be feared. Islam has always been a peaceful religion, and it has been preached by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, by the Sahabas, and so many generations of Muslims as a peaceful religion. But somehow, people would always want to dent the image of Islam or the integrity of Islam in order to make to dehumanize the Muslims, to demoralize the Muslims. So you're right, to a certain extent, that since 9/11, the whole tide has kind of changed towards the Muslims. That now Islamophobia is being used, like I said, as an instrument of dehumanization of the Muslims the world over. And perhaps I have to say this, it is very discriminatory as well. There are certain offenses, there are certain crimes, there are certain things others do, but it doesn't equate to being phobic. But when Muslims do the same, then it becomes a crime. So I think it is also a very discriminatory terminology, Islamophobia. I wouldn't agree to that, because even Muslims, regardless of their political affiliation, they are also very sensitive about the integrity of Islam. So every Muslim country has always been promoting or trying to safeguard the integrity of Islam. But we know that in international relations, there is always a way to kind of address the issue confronting the Muslims. But sometimes we have to be very, very sensitive and understanding that there is a difference between social interests and national interests.
Right.
And many a times, national interests, it supersedes the social or social people interests. So my state or my country might be interested in a particular issue, but the people at the local level might not be interested. So there's a huge difference. So one should be able to understand that. So in international relations of today, national interest is always above all else.
Right.
National interest is always above all else. So that should be one of the dilemma of the international system. The people might not be inclined towards a particular ideology or a particular sentiment, but the state, because the state believes that it is part of the national interest. Yes, thank you so much. I think Pakistan will be very instrumental in this way. And let me start with the comment or the pronouncement of Prime Minister Imran Khan during the last UN General Assembly. You see how the Prime Minister was able to articulate the point of Pakistan. So first and foremost, that is the most important way or the best way to actually showcase what Pakistan should be doing and how Pakistan should behave. And Pakistan has demonstrated through the Prime Minister that we are against Islamophobia, whether it is in the region of South Asia or the globe at large. So it means Pakistan is not only playing the part of reducing or eradicating Islamophobia at the regional level, it is also playing that role at the global level. So that kudos goes to Pakistan in that way through the Prime Minister's speech. Secondly, for the very fact that all president and prime minister and kings, they were there at the UN General Assembly meeting, then it shows how Pakistan has been able to communicate its argument to the rest of the world. So like I said earlier, Pakistan is not only fighting Islamophobia at the regional level, it has been able to pronounce and to ascertain that Islamophobia should not be condoned anywhere in the world, whether it is in Europe, it is in Africa, it is in Latin America, it is in Southeast Asia or South Asia, anywhere in the world, Islamophobia is not something that should be tolerable. Right. It should not be tolerable. Yes, I think we have had some amount of Muslims' effort. For example, look at the King of Jordan. I think a couple of years back, he was in the European Union Parliament where he articulated the position of Islam, and he was able to say that he was trying to project Islam as a peaceful religion as opposed to having an ideology or sentiment which is Islamophobic in nature. So it is not just Pakistan. We have seen that of the King of Jordan. We've seen people, the King of Qatar, and other leaders within the Muslim world. And perhaps look at OIC. OIC has continued time without number producing material, intellectual material, academic material, in order to combat Islamophobia. There are a lot of conferences organized by the Muslims, particularly even the president of Turkey. So he has also been very articulative about how the world should fight against Islamophobia. So Muslims should not be seen as a devil. Right. And Islam should not be considered as evil to the world. We are as peaceful as any other person. So I think the Muslim leadership are doing their best. The best might not be
it's not getting that much.
Fine, might not be excellent, but nevertheless, they are doing their best. So one have to acknowledge that position, that whether it is Pakistan, it is Jordan, it is Qatar, it is Saudi Arabia, it is Turkey, Muslim leadership are trying their possible best to articulate to the world that Islamophobia must be stopped. Yeah, of course, you just kind of reiterate a concept which is called power in international relations. How much of economic power do you have at your disposal? And how much of diplomatic or political power do you have? It plays a great role. So you will not abuse Islam, or you will not insult Islam or insult the Muslims if Muslims are considered to be a powerful people. And you're very correct. So let's say, for example, the world of Islam or the society of Islam, we are economically viable. Let's take, for example, we bring together all of the Middle Eastern countries or the Gulf countries and other countries together. So it is not just economic power, technological power, diplomatic power, all of this put together, because power itself in international relations, we do know that power can be tangible and intangible.
Right.
So number one, the intangibility of power could be the political will of the Muslims. So do we have the political will as the world, as Ummah? That's it. So it is again a kind of decisiveness that is needed in order to fight Islamophobia. But like you mentioned, when we talk of power, power can either be in terms of GDP, economic viability. It can also be intangible. How much of Islam how do we preach Islam? Again, that's another intangibility of power. How do we preach Islam? How do we communicate Islam? How do we kind of profess Islam to the rest of the world? That also comes in fighting Islamophobia. So it is not just to propagate Islam with sword or with bullet or with missile, but also to propagate Islam with our mind.
You need to change mindset.
Yes, through intellectualism. And this is very important to fight Islamophobia, because at the end of the day, it's going to be a battle of idea, a battle of ideology. The first and foremost is what I believe in, re-socialization or re-engineering of our society. So we need to be very focused. We have to start practicing Islam the way the Prophet ﷺ or Islam wants us to practice it, regardless of interpretation. Or your interpretation, my interpretation is regardless of that. At least there should be a common ground that will, a kind of magnet, a kind of centripetal force that brings all Muslims together, regardless of who they are, regardless of the geography. That is very much important. One. So, re-socialization, re-engineering, one. Number two is that we need serious education about Islam now. Serious education about Islam. And it is only when we do that we can actually kind of start building or grooming people for intellectual ability to kind of negate Islamophobia. Like I said earlier, fighting Islamophobia is not just limited to weapon. It is not about terrorism. It has to do with idea. It has to do with idea. And when you see even the birth of Islam in Mecca, it never began with fighting. It began with the mind. So this is the first part. Number two is about the economic viability of the Muslim world. Economic independence. It is very also important in a way to fight Islamophobia. Number three is the diplomatic clout, diplomatic capability of the Muslims. I think we need to revive the concept of Ummah, like we had during the time of the Caliphate, of the Osmani Caliphate. So again, we have to recalibrate, we have to reorganize the whole concept of Ummah, and Muslims should be very sensitive. Do we go with nationalism, or we go with the concept of Ummah as explained by Muhammad Iqbal? So our nationalism, is it underlined by risalat? Is it underlined by oneness of God? Is it defined by our ethnicity? Is it defined by our language? No, that shouldn't be. So these are ways. Not until we clean or we put our homes in order, we cannot. It's just like they say in English language, charity begins at home. So not until we put our house in order, before someone else can. You cannot respect me if I don't respect myself. Right.